Somewhere off the coast of Venezuela, a speedboat with 11 people on board is blown to smithereens. Vice President Vance announces that killing cartel members that poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military. When challenged that killing citizens without due process is a war crime, the Vice President's response is that he doesn't give a shit. Sometimes, in fits of anger, loud voices will say they don't care about the niceties such as due process. They just want to kill bad guys. For a brief moment, all of us share that anger and may even embrace revenge or retribution. But over 20,000 people are murdered each year in the U.S., and somehow we find a way to a dispassionate dispensation of justice that includes legal representation and a trial. Why? Because sometimes the accused is actually not guilty. Even with the best of care, even with the best of justice, sometimes we find out it's the wrong person. As passions subside, a civilized people should ask questions. To be clear, the people bombed to smithereens were guilty, right? If anyone gave a you-know-what about justice, perhaps those in charge of deciding whom to kill might let us know their names, present proof of their guilt, show evidence of their crimes. The administration has maintained that the people that they blew to smithereens were members of a gang, members of Tren de Aragua, and therefore narco-terrorists. Why? Because we say so. But certainly then, if they know that they belong to a particular gang, then someone must surely know their names before they were blown to smithereens. Is it too much to ask to know the names of those we kill before we kill them, to know what evidence exists of their guilt? At the very least, the government should explain how the gang came to be labeled as terrorists. How did the people who you say are in a gang, how did they come to be labeled as a terrorist? U.S. law defines a terrorist as someone who uses premeditated, politically motivated violence against non-combatants. Show us evidence of that. Show us evidence of their guilt. Show us evidence that they are terrorists, perhaps before we blow people to smithereens. Since the U.S. policy is now to blow people to smithereens if they are suspected of being in a terrorist gang, then maybe someone should take the time to explain the evidence of their terrorism. Critics of this whole terrorist labeling charade, such as Matthew Petty at Reason, explain that in practice, what we are doing in practice means that a terrorist is whoever the executive branch decides to label one. You are a terrorist because you are labeled one. You can be killed because you are called a terrorist. But where in all of this is some sort of evidence that you are guilty of something? While no law dictates such, once people are labeled as terrorists, they appear to be no longer eligible for any sort of due process. No, the blow them to smithereens crowd at this point will loudly voice the
sentient humans, but one I feel that requires a response. International law and norms have always granted due process to individuals on the high seas not actively involved in combat. U.S. maritime law explains in detail the level of force and the escalation of force allowed in the interdiction of drugs. You realize we interdict hundreds of ships off the shore of Miami, off the Pacific coast, and we don't always blow them to smithereens. Why? Because some of them don't actually have drugs on them. Hundreds of ships are stopped. Daily, yearly, the blow them to smithereens crowd might stop to ponder that a good percentage of the ships that we actually search turn out not to be drug smugglers. Coast Guard statistics show that 1 in 4 interdictions finds no drugs. So far the administration has admitted to blowing up 4 boats suspected of drug smuggling. So there's a 1 in 4 chance, statistically speaking, that one of these boats may not have had any drugs on it. We will never know because they were blown to smithereens. We may never know the names of the people because they were blown to smithereens. We may never know whether they had arms because they were blown to smithereens. It seems someone should ask, if the U.S. policy is to blow up all suspected ships, should that policy really be extolled as the highest and best use of our military? What an insult to our military.